Assalamu alaikum. This is Jhangi and you are watching Medical and Nursing Lectures. Dear learners, today we are going to discuss the overview of the gastrointestinal tract. The gastrointestinal tract is a hollow long tube in which food particles through mouth to anus. The main digestive organs are mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and the anus. The organs which help in the digestion are called accessory organs. The main accessory organs are teeth, tongue, salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. The functions of digestive system are ingestion, which means taking food in, digestion, which means breaking down foods into nutrients, absorption, pulling nutrients into bloodstream, and excretion, getting rid of waste. When we talk about the oral cavity, so when we take a bite of pizza or anything else, so the food particle come in contact with the teeth. The function of teeth is to masticate or chew the food and to convert it into small fragments. These small fragments then come in contact with the tongue. The food particle are get tasted and rolled over here. The tongue is a huge muscular organ which also make the flow of the oral cavity. The roof of the oral cavity is made by the hard plate and it is followed by the soft plate. Hard plate basically separate the oral cavity from the nasal cavity. The hard plate provides a hard surface to mash food against. The hard plate is followed by the soft plate and a finger-like projection which is called vulva. It forms a plate or valve and then the food flows down towards the esophagus. At the same time, the food come in contact with the salivary secretions. As we know that there are three salivary glands. The first one is parotid gland, which is near the ear. The second one is sublingual gland, which is under the tongue. And the third one is submandibular gland, which is below the mandible. All these glands help to lubricate the food. Now the food is called bolus. Salivary secretions contain salivary amylase to digest long carbohydrate and to convert it into simple sugar. The food particle then come towards the pharynx and then to the esophagus. But in the middle, there is a lid-like structure which is called epiglottis. The epiglottis seals the airway off. So by this way, it prevents the airway from going food inside in. And the food particles easily go from the pharynx towards the esophagus and then reach to the stomach. When we talk about the esophagus, so esophagus is a hollow tube that leads from the throat to the stomach. Food does not just fall through esophagus to the stomach. The walls of esophagus propel food to the stomach by rhythmic waves of muscular contraction, which is called peristalsis. When we look at the cross section of gastrointestinal tract, so basically the gastrointestinal tract is made up of 4 layers. The first one is called adventitia or serosa. Adventitia is made up of thick fibrous connective tissue, while the serosa is a slippery serous membrane. The second one layer is called muscularis externa, which is made up of smooth muscles. And as we know about the smooth muscles, it contract automatically. When we look closer to the second layer, which we discuss a bit earlier, the muscular externa. So it contains further 2 layers. The first one is called inner circular layer. You will see the circular shape inside it. The function of this layer is to contract and constrict behind food, and the second one layer is called outer longitudinal layer. It relaxes and lengthens so pulls food forward. The collective function of inner circular layer and outer longitudinal layer is create a specific movement which is called peristalsis. Inside the muscularis externa, there is a plexus, a network of nerves, which is called mentoric plexus. It also causes the relaxation of smooth muscles. And the third layer is called submucosa. It is a dense layer of tissues. It contains blood vessels, lymphatics, and nerves. Inside the mucosa, there is a submucous plexus. The function of submucous plexus is to control the size of blood vessels. It also controls the secretion of digestive juices. The fourth layer is mucosa. So when we look closer to the mucosa, mucosa further contains three layers. The first layer is called muscularis mucosa or muscularis interna. It is made up of smooth muscles. Function of this layer is to break down food. The second one layer is called lamina propria. It contains blood vessels. And the uppermost layer inside the mucosa is called epithelial layer. This layer comes in direct contact with the food particles. It absorbs and secretes mucus and digestive enzymes. Now we have to talk about the sphincters. Just below the junction of the throat and the esophagus is a band of muscle called the upper esophageal sphincter. Slightly above the junction of the esophagus and the stomach is another band of muscle called the lower esophageal sphincter. When the esophagus is not in use, these sphincters close so that food and stomach acid do not flow back up the esophagus from the stomach to the mouth. During swallowing, the sphincters open so food can pass to the stomach. These are the sphincters. The first one is called esophageal sphincter. Then the next one is cardiac sphincter, sphincter of Oddi, internal anal sphincter, and external anal sphincter. Now we have to talk about the stomach. The stomach having four parts. The left upper part is called cardia. The right upper part is called fundus. The middle part of the stomach is called body, which is composed of oblique smooth muscles. The function of these smooth muscles is to contract and expand. So due to the contraction and expansion of the oblique smooth muscles, the digestive juices secrete and it mix with the food particles, so it make chyme. The last part of the stomach is pyloric intrum. After the pyloric intrum, there is a sphincter which is called pyloric sphincter. The function of it to keep food inside the stomach. Inside the stomach walls, there are gastric pits, which are the projection of gastric glands, such as hydrochloric acid, pepsin, mucus, and water. All these gastric secretion mix with the food particle and it make chyme. And the small intestine. The first part of the small intestine is called duodenum. Second one is jejunum. The third one is ileum. Despite the name of small intestine, it is large as 10.5 meters or 35 feet. Inside the small intestine, there are small projections which are called villi. The villi are further composed of microvilli. Basically, the microvilli increase the surface area of a small intestine, so more and more nutrients are get absorbed here. The liver is a huge muscular organ which is situated at the right upper quadrant. It helps the digestive system by making bile. When we take food and it contain fat, so as you know that the fat is part of the chyme. The chyme stimulate enteroendocrine cells by stimulating a hormone by releasing a hormone which is called cholecystic kinine into the blood. This hormone travels toward the gallbladder. Gallbladder is a thin-walled green structure attached to the liver. The gallbladder receives signals for bile secretion. It secretes its secretion into the small intestine by squeezing action into the small intestine. Basically, the gallbladder store and concentrate the bile secretion of the liver. The function of the bile is to emulsify the fat and convert into the micelles. Micelles are the micelles are the small structures of the lipids and bile acids. So the bile convert the fat into the micelles rather than converting it into the disorganized structures. So when it convert into the micelles, so it can easily absorb inside the gastrointestinal tract. The pancreas is another accessory organ which is stimulated by a hormone cholecystic kinine. The pancreas contains acinar cells. The acinar cells secrete digestive enzyme. Among those digestive enzymes, the first one is pancreatic lipase. Pancreatic lipase convert triglyceride into more simple molecules such as fatty acids and glycerol. Another enzyme is pancreatic amylase. It converts carbohydrate into more simple sugar which is oligosaccharide. Another one is proteases or trypsin. It converts large protein molecules into smaller peptide bonds. Now, to prevent the gastric and intestinal mucosa from the effect of hydrochloric acid, the enteroendocrine cells secrete a hormone which is known as secretin. It stimulates the pancreatic duct cells, which in turn secrete water and bicarbonate. Bicarbonate neutralize the acidic chyme by increasing pH of the chyme. So, in the alkaline chyme, the digestive enzymes work more effectively. The glands in the submucosa of duodenal wall also aid generous amount of bicarbonate. So at this point, the food is almost ready for the absorption throughout the small intestine. The fatty acid and glycerol inside the small intestine is taken to the lymphatics easily, but to convert complex sugar molecules into simple sugar molecules, there are specific enzymes at the brush border. The enzymes are called brush border enzymes. The enzymes are maltase, sucrase, and lactase. Similarly, there is peptidases which convert the peptide chain into simple unit which are called amino acid. The short chain of the carbohydrate are called oligosaccharide. These oligosaccharides are converted into monosaccharide such as glucose, fructose, and galactose. Alright, so what is not absorbed over here is the fiber or fiber-like structures. So The fiber reach to the last part of the gastrointestinal tract, which is also known as colon, through the ileocecal sphincter. The colon is long as 1.5 meter or 5 feet. Colon having 6 parts. The first pouch-like structure is called cecum. The cecum having finger-like projection known as appendix. Above the appendix, at the right side of the abdomen, the ascending colon claimed. Below the diaphragm, that is transverse colon, and at the left side of the abdomen, the descending colon runs. The S-shaped structure of the colon is called sigmoid colon, and then the last part of the large intestine is known as rectum. Now, when the chyme reach to the large intestine or colon, so it met with the trillions of bacteria. Collectively, it is known as microbiome. The microbiome is still under study, but we know that it helps in making of vitamin B and vitamin K. It also produces some gases such as CO2, methane, and sulfurous compounds. These gases are then released at the awkward moment. The chyme stays here for hours or days. From the chyme, the excess water get absorbed by the colon, and then the dry fecal remain here, and then it travels toward the rectum. When the rectum stretch, so the signal travel to the parasympathetic neurons in the spinal cord, then the defecation reflex generated. In the result, the rectum contract and the internal sphincter relaxes. Meanwhile, the brainstem and thalamus also take part in the defecation reflex, and when the right moment comes, the go down, hopefully in the toilet box. Alright, now here is the summary of the gastrointestinal tract. The food is ingested by the mouth, it is chewed by the teeth, then it mixes with the saliva inside the oral cavity, it forms bolus, and bolus then go down towards the esophagus, and from esophagus it reaches to the stomach. Inside the stomach, the hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and some other gastric juices are mixed with the food particles, and then it make chyme. So the digestion begins in the small intestine. Inside the small intestine, the digestion and absorption begin at the same time with the help of the liver's bile and the gallbladder. The gallbladder secrete the bile in the small intestine. Inside the small intestine, the pancreatic enzymes also get mixed, and then these contents reach to the large intestine. The large intestine absorbs the excess water from the fecal content, and then the waste products get excreted. Thank you for watching. Please like, share with your dears and nears, and comment on the videos.